They say your family is your first home, the one place you're supposed to feel safe. But what happens when that home becomes your prison? When the people meant to protect you become the ones who ruin you? My name is Amara Lewis, and I've carried silence like a second skin for most of my life. From the outside, our house in Bayfield, Georgia looked like every other home on the street. A neat porch, a yard with flowers, a flag hanging proudly. But what happened inside that house could burn the devil's soul. People saw my brother Marcus as a golden boy. Charming, polite, the one who held open doors and said, "Yes, ma'am." What they didn't see was how he crept into my room at night, whispering things no child should hear, doing things no brother should ever do. I was just 9 when it began. I thought I was broken, cursed. I thought it was my fault. But it wasn't. My father, Samuel Lewis, called me a liar. My mother, Grace, saw everything and still looked away. By the time I turned 14, I wasn't just carrying shame. I was carrying a child, his child. This is not a story for the faint of heart. This is not a fairy tale. This is the truth, brutal, raw, and unfiltered. I tell it now not for pity, but for every girl still trapped in the quiet hell of their own homes. I escaped. Barely. But I did. Before we continue, if this story already touches something deep inside you, if you've ever felt unheard, unseen, or alone in your pain, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. I also want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me where in the world you're watching from. Because no matter where you are, no matter what you've survived, you are not alone. Let's begin. You would never guess from looking at our house that it hid monsters. Our porch was painted white every spring. Our lawn was trimmed. We even had a little garden, roses and marigolds my mother tended to with trembling hands. But inside, nothing bloomed. Inside, I was just a shadow. I was 7 when I first understood that love in our house came with bruises. My father's voice always roared through the walls like a thunderstorm. If Mama talked back, even softly, she'd pay for it. Slaps, shouts, silence. That was their language. I learned it well. And then there was Marcus, my big brother. 5 years older. Tall. Handsome. With sea glass green eyes that everyone admired. Strangers used to tell my mother, "He'll break a lot of hearts someday." They didn't know he was already breaking mine. It started so small, I barely noticed. A long hug. A hand resting too long. Him slipping into my bed because he was cold or afraid. Mama would find us sometimes and frown, but she never stopped it. She never asked questions. "Let him be." My father would bark. "Ain't nothing wrong with loving your sister." But I didn't feel loved. I felt trapped. I tried to tell Mama once. I whispered, "Marcus is being weird." Her hands were in dishwater. She paused, just for a second, and I saw the fear in her eyes. She knew, but she said, "Don't say such things. Your brother loves you. He's just protective." I swallowed her lie. But deep down, I knew something was wrong, and I was all alone. By the time I turned 9, Marcus no longer asked to sleep in my bed. He just came. Some nights he'd sit at the edge, brushing my hair, calling me pretty. Other nights, he'd pull the blanket back and whisper things I didn't understand but felt wrong. I started pretending to be asleep. Eyes shut, body frozen. Heart pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. Sometimes he'd just sit there. Other times he wouldn't. I stopped looking in the mirror. I hated the girl staring back. One night, I finally found the courage to tell Mama again. It was after he'd touched me under my dress, and I ran to the bathroom, shaking, heart in my throat. I waited until the next morning. She was ironing Daddy's shirts, sweat shining on her forehead. "Mama," I said, "Marcus is doing things to me. Bad things." She stopped. The iron hissed as it rested. Her eyes locked with mine. And I saw it. The knowing. The fear. The helplessness. She turned away. "Don't speak like that," she said. "He's your brother. He just loves you. It's just boys don't know boundaries." "But Mama." "That's enough, Amara." The sound of her voice made me flinch. She didn't yell often. But that morning she did. Not because she didn't believe me, but because she did. And that was worse. That evening, at dinner, Marcus winked at me across the table. Daddy went on about his job at the plant. Mama served us all in silence, her hands trembling. That night, I pushed my dresser against the door. It didn't help. Marcus was stronger. He laughed when he shoved it open. "You think you can keep me out?" he whispered. "Silly girl." He kissed my forehead like he was tucking in a doll, and left. I stayed up until sunrise, my back against the wall, knees pulled to my chest. That was the first night I thought about running away. But I was 9. Where could I go? Time stopped meaning anything in that house. The seasons changed outside, trees bloomed, leaves fell, the sun rose and set. But inside, we lived in a kind of slow-motion nightmare. And no one spoke about it. Not the bruises I hid under long sleeves. Not the way I flinched when Marcus walked too close. Not the way Mama's eyes refused to meet mine when she found me curled up in the hallway with my nightgown torn. Nothing. I was 10 the first time I truly understood what people meant when they said, "You're becoming a woman." My chest had started to change. Tiny buds forming beneath my shirt. Marcus noticed before I did. He started watching me more closely. "You're growing," he said once, standing too close in the hallway. "You're gonna be real pretty soon." My stomach turned. I wrapped my arms around myself and ran to the bathroom. After that, I started bathing in my clothes. It didn't stop him. Sometimes he'd walk in while I was still in the shower. "Forgot my towel," he'd say, but he wouldn't leave. He'd just stand there watching, that same disgusting smirk on his face. I told Mama again. Whispered through the bathroom door, voice shaking. "Mama, he keeps coming in. I'm scared." She opened the door slowly and looked at me. My wet clothes clung to my shivering body. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Just lock the door," she said. "I do. He breaks it." "Well then take faster showers." Faster showers. That was her solution. The next day, she replaced the broken latch. It lasted a week. After Marcus kicked it in again, Daddy blamed me. "Always so damn careless," he muttered. "Can't take care of anything in this house." At 11, I stopped playing outside. I stopped laughing. The neighbors thought I was just a quiet girl. "So shy," they'd say. "So polite." No one saw how my hands trembled at the dinner table. How I barely touched my food. How I stared at my plate like I was trying to disappear into it. Even school stopped feeling safe. Marcus would walk me there sometimes, pretending to be the protective big brother, holding my shoulder too tightly, smiling too wide. "You're mine," he whispered in my ear once, right before we walked through the gates. Mine. Not his sister. Not a girl. Just a thing he believed he owned. By 12, I started getting those looks from grown men. The ones that made me feel dirty and exposed, even when I was fully clothed. Mama noticed too. She started making me wear baggier dresses. Said it was to keep the attention off me. But it wasn't the strangers who scared me. It was Marcus. One night, he waited in my room, sitting on my bed in the dark. "You're getting older," he whispered as I froze in the doorway. "Boys are gonna start sniffing around soon." He stood, walking toward me. "But they don't get to have you. You're mine." I backed up, heart pounding. "You're drunk." "I don't have to be drunk," he said. "I just have to be patient. You'll see." He reached for me. I screamed. That scream, raw, loud, desperate, woke Daddy. He stormed into the room. I thought for a second he might have actually come to help. "What the hell's going on in here?" he barked. I tried to speak. Tried to say what Marcus was doing. But before I could get the words out, Marcus said, "She's sneaking around. Caught her trying to climb out the window. Probably meeting some boy." Daddy's eyes turned on me. Wild, furious. "You little tramp," he snarled. And then the belt came off. He hit me until I couldn't stand. Marcus watched from the doorway, smiling. At 13, I bled for the first time. I woke up to wet sheets and a sharp pain in my stomach. I thought something was wrong with me. Thought maybe I was dying. Mama came in, saw the stain, and sighed. She handed me a bundle of old rags. "You're a young lady now," she said. I just stared at her, tears brimming. I wanted to scream. I've been a young lady since I was 9. Since the night your son made my body his playground. But I didn't say anything. Because I knew she wouldn't either. She just walked out, closing the door behind her, leaving me to clean myself up alone. As the weeks passed, Marcus became more possessive. He started cornering me in the pantry, the laundry room, the hallway. Anytime Daddy wasn't around. Sometimes I fought. Sometimes I froze. But always, afterward, I felt like I was sinking deeper into a hole I'd never climb out of. I started praying. Not to be saved. I no longer believed in that. But for the strength to make it through the night. For the courage to disappear. To die. I stopped talking at school. Teachers sent notes home. Amara is struggling socially. She seems withdrawn. Is everything okay at home? Daddy never opened those letters. Marcus did. One day, he came into my room holding one of them, waving it like a prize. They think something's wrong with you, he said. But we know better, don't we? I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because it was safer than disagreeing. My 13th birthday came and went without a cake. Just a dinner where Daddy grumbled about bills. Mama looked thinner than ever, and Marcus slid a gift across the table. It was a bracelet. Cheap, too small, clearly stolen from some girl he'd sweet-talked. For my girl, he said. I looked at Mama. She looked away. That night, I tried to block my door with my dresser again. Marcus pushed it open anyway. It's been years, he whispered. You should be used to this by now. That was the night I stopped feeling anything. No tears. No pain. Just emptiness. That emptiness lasted until one cold morning when my stomach flipped and the world tilted. I dropped to my knees in the kitchen, vomiting into the sink. Mama rushed over, rubbing my back. You sick, baby? She asked. I didn't answer, because deep down I already knew. My body wasn't mine. And now, it wasn't empty either. It started with the nausea. Not just morning sickness. This was a wave that rolled in any time of day, leaving me weak and trembling. The smell of fried eggs, soap, even the heat in the kitchen was enough to send me running to the bathroom. Mama noticed first. Of course she did. Mama noticed everything, even when she pretended not to. You eating spoiled food, girl? She asked one morning as I sat pale and sweating beside the stove. I shook my head. We barely had enough good food, let alone spoiled. But the sickness didn't stop, and neither did the fatigue. By the time I collapsed while sweeping the porch, I had already missed 2 periods. That's when the panic settled in. I waited until the house was quiet. Daddy off at the plant, Marcus gone with his friends, Mama folding laundry in the backyard, before I locked myself in the bathroom and counted on my fingers. December. Nothing. January. Nothing. Now it was mid-February. My hands were shaking. My body was ice and fire at once. I pressed both palms against my still flat stomach and whispered, "No. Please no." But deep down I already knew. I was 14. And I was pregnant. The fear didn't come all at once. It crept in like smoke, curling through every part of my life. At first, I tried to deny it. I convinced myself maybe it was just stress. Maybe my body was playing tricks on me. But when my breasts ached and my belly started to feel different, heavier, swollen, I couldn't deny it anymore. I started wearing Daddy's old button-up shirts, clothes that swallowed me whole. I walked with a slight hunch to hide the change. I even tied rags around my waist at night, hoping I could squeeze it away. But you can't hide a storm once it starts to thunder. And this one was roaring inside me. Mama walked in on me changing one morning. I didn't have time to cover up. She froze in the doorway. Her eyes dropped to the small swell of my belly, the shape I'd been trying so desperately to hide. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She just looked at me like someone whose worst fear had finally knocked on the front door. "Amara," she whispered. "No. No, baby, tell me it's not true." But I couldn't lie anymore. I burst into tears, dropping to my knees on the wooden floor. "I didn't want this," I sobbed. "Mama, I swear I didn't." He kept coming. I tried to stop him. I did. She rushed to me, wrapped her arms around me tighter than she had in years. We sat there, rocking back and forth on the cold floor, our sobs tangled together. She didn't ask who. She didn't need to. We both already knew. For a brief moment, I thought maybe that would be it. Maybe we'd run away together, start over somewhere far from Bayfield. Maybe she'd finally choose me over her fear. But Mama, though soft and sweet, was shackled by a lifetime of obedience. Her courage only burned in flickers. "We have to tell your father," she said later that night, her voice barely above a whisper. I felt all the air leave my lungs. "No, Mama. Please. He'll kill me. He'll kill the baby. Soon we won't be able to hide it," she said, eyes glassy. "What do you expect me to do, Amara?" I didn't have an answer. She didn't either. So we waited. In the quiet days that followed, she began to take care of me in secret. Left warm rags for my backaches. Brewed bitter teas for my nausea. Rubbed oil on my skin when the stretch marks began to bloom across my hips. And all the while, Marcus walked through the house like nothing had changed. He didn't even notice. Or maybe he didn't care. When he looked at me, he still smiled like I was his favorite toy. His voice still dropped to a whisper when we were alone. "You're mine," he said one night, brushing past me in the hallway. I didn't answer. I just walked faster. But deep down, I knew I couldn't outrun what was growing inside me. By March, there was no hiding it anymore. I stood in front of the mirror, one of the few in the house not cracked or clouded with dust, and stared at the undeniable curve of my belly. My dress, no matter how loose, could no longer lie for me. My hands hovered above my stomach. I hadn't dared to touch it until then. But that morning I did. Gently. Like it wasn't real. Like it wasn't growing because of the horror that had taken root in my own blood. The child inside me shifted. Not a kick, not yet. Just a presence. A weight. I didn't know whether to cry or vomit. So I did both. Mama came into my room just after sunrise. She found me sitting on the floor in my nightgown, hair a tangled mess, eyes swollen. She didn't need to ask what was wrong. She already knew. "I saw your dress," she said quietly, like a secret that had been passed between too many lips. I said nothing. I couldn't even look at her. Mama crossed the room slowly, sat beside me. Her face was older than it should have been, etched with years of silence and compromise. "I kept hoping it wasn't true," she whispered. "That maybe it would just go away." "It won't," I said. My voice cracked like something dry breaking. We sat in silence. Then, Mama did something she hadn't done in years. She reached out and placed her hand on my belly. Her palm was warm and shaking. "It's real," she said, more to herself than to me. And then the question that had been hovering finally landed. "What do we do, Mama?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed fixed on the swell beneath my nightgown. "We wait," she said. "Just a little longer. Until we figure out what to say." "What to say?" I asked, a little louder than I meant to. "To who?" "Daddy. You think there's words for this?" She looked away, guilt washing over her like a wave. "I'm scared too, Amara." "I know," I whispered. "But he's my father. He's supposed to be scared for me." The next few weeks passed like walking on a frozen lake. Every step felt like it might crack the world beneath us. Mama tried to act normal. She cooked, cleaned, sang softly when she thought no one was listening. But I saw the tension in her jaw, the way she rubbed her hands raw with dish soap. She was waiting for the moment when everything would collapse. So was I. Marcus didn't notice, or pretended not to. Either way, it was like watching the snake that had bitten you slither around the house like a king. "Starting to show," he whispered one day when he passed me in the hallway. "Still pretty, though." I wanted to scream, wanted to claw his face, rip the smugness off of it. Instead, I stood still, silent, just like always. It was a Thursday night in late April when the world finally cracked open. Daddy came home drunker than usual. His boots stomped through the house like thunder. Mama overcooked the beans, and he threw the pot across the room, scorching the curtains. He slammed his hand on the table. Where's Amara? I froze in the back room, clutching my belly, already 5 months along and terrified. He found me anyway. Take off that rag, he growled, pointing at the shawl I'd wrapped around my stomach. No. Take it off. With trembling hands, I let it fall. His eyes locked on my stomach. A silence fell over the room so sharp. It felt like the air had been cut with a knife. Then came the question. Who's the father? My mouth opened. But the truth, it stayed trapped behind my teeth. Who's the father? The question echoed through the room like a warning bell. Daddy stood there, fists clenched, chest rising like a bull ready to charge. His eyes burned with something wild, rage, disbelief, something meaner than either. Mama stood behind him, her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but fear held her tongue hostage. I could feel the blood draining from my face, my knees threatening to buckle beneath me. This was the moment I'd imagined so many times. I thought I'd be brave. I thought I'd say his name, Marcus, loud and clear. But when I looked into Daddy's eyes, I saw no space for truth, just violence. So I whispered the first name that came to mind. Mike, the boy from the corner store. The one who once helped me carry a bag of flour. The one Daddy already hated just for looking at me too long. He stared at me, face contorting like the truth physically repulsed him. That filthy boy? That low-down piece of trash? He barked. Mama gasped. Before I could explain, before I could breathe, he turned and grabbed his shotgun from behind the door. I'll kill him. No, I cried, stumbling after him. Please. It's not his fault. But Daddy was already halfway out the door, Mama screaming behind him. And Marcus just stood there, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, watching. No fear, no panic, just that smug, hateful little smile. He knew what I'd done. He knew I'd protected him. And somehow, I hated myself more for that than anything else. Daddy never found Mike. He stormed into the corner store like a madman, yelling, threatening, waving his shotgun until the clerk called the sheriff. When he came home, he was red-faced, still drunk, still furious. You're lucky I didn't get locked up tonight, he told me. Ungrateful little whore. You've ruined this family. I wanted to scream. You think I ruined this family? But again, silence. My silence had become a second skin. Too tight to shed. Too heavy to lift. That night, Mama came into my room and sat beside me. She rubbed my back gently like she used to when I was a child with nightmares. I'll find a way, she whispered. I promise you, Amara. We'll figure something out. You won't stay here forever. Her voice cracked on the word forever. And for the first time in months, I let myself believe her. Even if it was just for a moment. But freedom doesn't come quietly. It claws. It kicks. It tests the chains first. And the next morning, Marcus came into my room. He shut the door behind him. Didn't speak. Just stood there, watching me with those cold eyes. You told him it was Mike, he said finally. I nodded. I should thank you. My stomach turned. He walked closer. Too close. His hand reached toward my belly. I slapped it away. Don't, I hissed. Don't touch me. Not ever again. Something in his face shifted. Not anger. Not regret. Just boredom. Like he'd already moved on. Don't worry, he muttered. I'm not interested in damaged goods. He turned and left without another word. And for the first time, I didn't cry. I just stared at the door and felt the beginnings of something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Fire. It was small, flickering, fragile, but it was there. And I knew then I was going to leave. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But soon. Because even in silence, even in shame, I was still alive. And I still had something left worth saving. The morning after Marcus left my room without touching me, I woke up different. Not safe. Not healed. But changed. Something inside me had shifted. A tiny flame had taken root in the ashes of my fear. I wasn't free yet, but for the first time, I believed I could be. Mama moved quietly around me, softer than ever. She fed me more now. Slices of bread with sugar and cinnamon, rice with a bit of butter, tea boiled with herbs from Mrs. Palmer's garden. I think she was trying to make up for all the years of silence with food and care. And I let her. I needed it. But food wouldn't save me. Not from this house. Not from Marcus. Not from Daddy's rage. And time was running out. I was nearly 6 months along. My belly had rounded enough that even strangers in town had started to look twice. The whispers had begun. The church women watched me with narrowed eyes. Doesn't she look like she's gained weight? You don't think? Mama kept saying. Just a little longer. Let the summer pass. Then we'll go. But I didn't want to wait for fall. I couldn't. Then, one Sunday after service, a crack in the darkness appeared. Dressed in a bright red scarf and high heels that clicked like thunder on the church steps. Janelle Carter. She was 17, bold, loud, and everything I wasn't. She'd left Bayfield for Atlanta the year before, then showed up again like a gust of wind, full of stories and perfume. She spotted me across the churchyard and waved like we were old friends. "Hey, Amara," she grinned, walking straight toward me. "You look different." I froze. She looked me up and down, then leaned close. "You hiding something or someone?" I blushed, stepping back, unsure whether to laugh or cry. But Janelle wasn't cruel. She narrowed her eyes and tilted her head. "You want to get out of here?" she whispered. "You look like someone who's been thinking about leaving." That was the first time anyone had asked me that, and I didn't know what to say. The next day, Janelle showed up at our porch with a brown paper bag and an excuse about giving Mama some leftover cornbread. She winked at me on her way in. Later that night, tucked behind the woodpile in the backyard, she pressed a folded note into my hand. "I've got a friend," it said. "She knows people. Women. They help girls like us. You just have to be brave enough to ask. Girls like us." I stared at those words until the moon rose, and my fingers went numb from holding the paper too tight. She knew. Not everything. Maybe not Marcus. But enough. Enough to know I didn't just need help. I needed escape. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet. Marcus barely looked at me. Daddy kept to himself, brooding on the porch with a bottle, staring off into the woods like he could see a different life through the trees. Mama stayed close to me, always watching, always listening. I think she could feel something coming. She just didn't know what. Then one night, I found a second note tucked into my coat pocket. "We're leaving Saturday night. Bring nothing that makes noise. Be at the bus stop on Maple Street by 11. Don't tell anyone. Not even your mama. I'll explain later." It wasn't signed, but I knew it was Janelle. I stared at the note until my vision blurred. Saturday. It was Tuesday now. For more days. For more nights in that house. For more mornings wondering if Marcus would change his mind. For more dinners where Daddy would curse at the beans and throw his boots at the dog. I folded the note and tucked it deep in my shoe. Then I closed my eyes and began to count the hours. The moment Saturday morning arrived, the air felt different. Thicker. Heavier. The walls seemed closer than they were the day before. The floor creaked louder beneath my feet, and every clock ticked like it was warning me, tonight. 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 I barely slept the night before. I lay awake listening. To Marcus's door creaking when he came in late, to Daddy snoring in the front room, to Mama coughing softly through the walls. I stared at the ceiling, one hand on my belly, whispering to the child inside me. "We're leaving," I told him. "We're going to somewhere safe." It felt like a promise I had no right to make. All day I moved carefully, quietly. I folded laundry, washed dishes. I didn't want anyone to suspect anything, especially Marcus. He'd been unpredictable lately, distant, but not stupid. I didn't know what he'd do if he found out I was planning to leave. So I waited, until the sun dipped low, until Mama had fallen asleep in her chair, worn out from work and worry, until the whole house sank into that fragile quiet that comes before midnight. And then I moved. I didn't pack a suitcase. Janelle's note had warned me, bring nothing that makes noise. So I didn't. I slipped on 2 dresses under my coat, tied a second pair of socks into a cloth, and stuffed it in my coat pocket. The only other thing I brought was the tiny photograph of Mama and me from when I was 5, taken on a summer afternoon, before Marcus had turned into a shadow. And I brought the note, folded and hidden deep in my bra, close to my heart. The house was still, silent. I crept through the hallway, shoes in hand. My heart pounded in my ears like a drumbeat, screaming louder with every step. I reached the front door, turned the knob as slowly as I could, and froze. A voice behind me. "Where are you going?" "Marcus." I turned slowly. He stood there, barefoot in the dark, arms crossed, leaning against the doorframe like he'd been waiting. My stomach twisted. My throat went dry. "Just getting air," I whispered. He tilted his head, eyes sliding down to my coat. "You're wearing shoes." I tried to speak, to lie, to run, but my body wouldn't move. He stepped closer. "You think you can just leave?" he said, voice low, dangerous. "After everything I've done for you? For me?" My voice cracked, but the anger surprised me. "You ruined me." "No," he said. "I made you mine." That word again. Mine. Like I was an object. A toy he thought he could own. I took a step back. "I'm not yours," I said. His eyes darkened. "You tell Daddy, and he'll kill you. You leave, and you'll come crawling back. Girls like you don't survive out there." I felt something shift inside me. Not fear this time. Fire. Then I'd rather die trying. I pushed past him. He grabbed my arm. But this time I fought. I shoved him. Hard. Maybe harder than I thought I could. He stumbled back, not expecting resistance. I didn't wait. I bolted through the door barefoot, coat flapping behind me, belly heavy beneath me. I ran. Down the porch steps. Through the yard. Into the road. The wind stung my face. My breath came in sharp gasps. Every step hurt, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. The bus stop on Maple Street sat under a broken lamp, glowing just enough to light the sidewalk. And there she was. Janelle. Her arms crossed, foot tapping, a cigarette between her fingers. When she saw me, her eyes widened. "You made it." I nodded, breathless. "You good?" I shook my head. "Doesn't matter," she said, tossing her cigarette. "You're here." She led me to a woman waiting inside an old car. Someone Janelle called Mrs. Helena. She didn't smile, just opened the back door and said, "Get in." And I did. As we drove out of Bayfield, I looked back once, at the town that held my pain, my silence, my childhood. I didn't cry. Not yet, because I wasn't safe yet. But I was gone. And sometimes that's the first miracle. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the kind I knew from Bayfield. The thick, choking kind that wrapped around me every time I wanted to speak, every time I tried to breathe. No, this silence was different. It was soft. Still. Waiting. The car rumbled gently down the highway, headlights cutting through darkness like a promise. I sat in the back seat, clutching my belly with both hands, as if that alone could shield the baby, my baby, from everything we'd just escaped. Janelle sat beside me, arms folded, face unreadable. Mrs. Helena, the driver, hadn't spoken since we left. Her hands gripped the steering wheel like she'd done this before, like she knew the weight of what we carried. We drove for hours, watching the woods fade into towns, then into the edge of something bigger. Baltimore, she said. A place with buses, trains, buildings taller than the trees I'd grown up around. A place where nobody knew my name. That alone felt like a kind of freedom. We arrived just after 3 a.m. at a tall gray building that looked like an old church, or maybe a school. It was quiet, the city sleeping around us, only the hum of streetlights and the distant bark of a dog filling the air. "Stay close," Janelle said, helping me out of the car. My legs trembled from the ride and the fear I hadn't let myself feel until now. Every step up those stone steps felt like crossing a bridge I could never walk back over. Mrs. Helena knocked once on a side door. A moment later, it opened. A small woman with sharp eyes and soft hands greeted us. She wore a cardigan over her nightgown and spoke in a voice low but certain. "You're safe now," she said, guiding me inside. "Welcome." The place was warm, clean, quiet in a way I wasn't used to. No yelling, no glass breaking. No boots stomping down the hallway. Just soft voices. Dim lights. The sound of a baby crying somewhere far off. They gave me a room, small, with a twin bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out over the street. There was a robe on the bed, a toothbrush in a paper wrapper, a folded towel. I stared at it all, too stunned to move. "You rest now," the woman said. "We'll talk in the morning." Janelle hugged me before leaving. She whispered, "You're brave," in my ear, then followed Mrs. Helena back out into the dark. And just like that, I was alone. But not the kind of alone I'd known before. Not abandoned. Not cornered. Just quiet. I didn't sleep much. My body ached. My feet were sore. My belly twisted with nerves. But I stayed under the blanket, curled on my side, listening to the unfamiliar hum of city life. I thought about Mama. I wondered if she'd found my empty bed yet. If she'd cried. If she was relieved. Or afraid. I knew Daddy would be furious. And Marcus? I didn't even want to imagine. But I also knew this. I wasn't there. And they couldn't touch me anymore. When morning came, light poured in through the thin curtains, bathing the room in gold. I got up slowly, stretched, washed my face in the tiny sink. Downstairs, the small woman, Miss Ruth, she introduced herself, gave me oatmeal and tea. I ate in silence, watching the other girls in the room. Some looked like me. Some didn't. But they all had the same eyes, tired, haunted, but alive. One of them smiled at me. "First night's the hardest," she said. "Gets better. Not easy, but better." I nodded, unsure if I believed her yet. But I wanted to. Later that day, Miss Ruth sat with me in her office, a quiet room filled with books and sunshine. She didn't ask too many questions. Just enough. "How far along are you?" "Almost 6 months," I said, hand resting on my belly. "Do you have any health issues?" "No, ma'am." "Do you want to keep the baby?" I hesitated. So many people had spoken for me before, told me what to feel, what to be ashamed of. But now it was my turn. "Yes," I said finally. "He didn't ask to be born into this. He deserves better. And I want to give it to him." Miss Ruth nodded, no judgment in her eyes. "Then we'll help you," she said. "One step at a time." That night, back in my little room, I stood at the window for a long time. Cars passed. People walked by, laughing, arguing, living. And me, a girl from Bayfield, Georgia, pregnant, alone, and finally free. I stood there quietly, watching the world open up in front of me. It still hurt. It still scared me. But I was here. And that meant something. Because no matter what came next, the worst was behind me. The silence didn't own me anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself hope. 3 months later, I held him in my arms. Noah Elijah Lewis. He was born on a rainy morning in August, screaming and perfect. The nurses said he was strong, that his grip was tight and his lungs healthy. But I already knew that. He'd survived everything with me. Every bruise. Every night of fear. Every whisper I never got to say out loud. Now here he was, soft, wrinkled, and red-faced, wailing like he had a story of his own to tell. And I held him close, not as a reminder of what I'd been through, but as proof that I'd lived through it. He didn't belong to Marcus. He didn't belong to that house. He belonged to me. The first few weeks were hard. The crying, the feedings, the fear that I'd somehow mess everything up. I wasn't ready to be a mother, but I was already one. And little by little, I found my way. The shelter became my lifeline. Miss Ruth helped me apply for aid. A volunteer doula taught me how to hold Noah, bathe him, soothe him when he wouldn't stop crying. Other girls showed me how to swaddle tight and sleep light. And every day, I looked at my son and told him a little more of the truth. "You came from pain," I whispered, "but you were born for better." One quiet afternoon, while Noah napped, Miss Ruth brought me a letter. "It's from your mother," she said gently. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, Mama's handwriting was careful, trembling. "My sweet girl, not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about you. I knew the moment your bed was empty that you'd done the right thing. I only wish I had gone with you. But I'm proud of you, Amara. Proud that you were brave when I wasn't. I hope you forgive me. One day, I'll come find you. But for now, keep going. Keep living. Keep loving that baby like I know you will. Love, Mama." I cried harder than I had in months. Because even in the deepest dark, she'd been with me. I didn't just survive. I started to dream. Miss Ruth told me about a program that helped young mothers get their GEDs. I signed up. It wasn't easy, studying at night, rocking Noah to sleep between chapters. But I did it. I passed. Then I started volunteering at the shelter, helping girls like me, girls who came in carrying pain they couldn't name. I sat with them, held their hands, told them they weren't broken, just bruised, like I had been. Noah grew fast. His first laugh sounded like sunshine. His first steps felt like redemption. Every milestone reminded me why I fought so hard to leave. Not just for me, but for him. Years passed. We moved into a small apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. I got a part-time job at a bookstore, then another at a diner. I worked hard, saved pennies like they were gold. And slowly, the nightmares faded. Not completely. Some wounds never vanish. But I learned how to live around them, how to breathe without pain stealing the air, how to look in the mirror and see Amara. Not a victim, not a mistake, but a survivor. A mother, a woman, a voice. One day, I stood on the porch of our little apartment holding Noah's hand as he looked out at the world. He was 5 then, curious and gentle. He turned to me and asked, "Mama, where do babies come from?" I smiled. "From strength," I said. He looked confused. "What's that mean?" "It means you came from a mama who didn't give up. And one day, when he's older, I'll tell him everything. Not to burden him, but to teach him that love can grow from broken ground, that women like me can rise, that silence doesn't last forever." So if you're listening to this now, maybe watching this video alone in your room, and you felt trapped, unheard, invisible, this story is for you. If you've carried pain in silence, if you've been told your voice doesn't matter, if someone tried to take your power, your body, your future, know this. You can still write the ending. You can still choose you. You can walk away. You can fight back. You can survive. And one day, like I did, you can wake up to the sound of peace instead of fear. I'm no hero. I'm just a girl from Bayfield, Georgia, who finally said, enough. And if I can do it, so can you. If this story moved you, if my journey spoke to your heart, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And also comment where you are watching from. There's more to come. True stories. Raw healing. Hope where there used to be silence. This isn't just a channel. It's a place for survivors to rise. Because silence may shape our past, but it will never define our future.